back home in Guyana. My parents, they were hardworking people. As a result, we weren't necessarily always monitored by an adult. I remember often having to run to be at a neighbor's house or run to my own house because there was a man chasing after me, trying to grab me, and then I just ran. I was 8 years old. You know, there was another situation when this other young man actually went a lot further. Because of my experience of always trying to run away from someone who was trying to attack me or trying to find a way to keep someone from molesting me, I think those things caused me to fall into to depression. And I kept those secrets from my family members until today. I always had this desire in my heart to get married at the age of 20. Lo and behold, when I was 19 years old, I happened to meet Sam.
And when I met Naomi, I knew that if I missed her, I was going to be in trouble. So at the age of barely 20, I knew that I needed to get married to this woman. We were young, full of ambition. The world seemed like a place we could definitely conquer. And so we had a good life.
I started to share things about secrets that I had kept about myself. Not everything. I remember after I had the children, Sam wanted me to go back out to work. And I wouldn't. And the reason was I didn't want to leave my children just in case someone tried to do something to them. I stayed at home, but I never expressed to Sam why I felt a need to stay at home.
What I didn't realize at the time was that there were still a lot of things she didn't tell me in terms of the struggles she had had growing up as a young person. And it had to do with anxiety, which led to some mild forms of depression. In the 12th year of our marriage, I literally felt as though I had a rope around my neck with a large stone attached to it. And I felt like I was choking.
I felt as though I was less than zero. There was no hope for my life. I felt if I died, no one would notice because I couldn't live up to his expectations and even my expectations. I wanted more for myself.
I was at the pinnacle of my career. However, at home, because of the unhappiness that I was feeling, which I'm sure evoked some tension in our marriage and in Naomi as well, at that point, I just felt like, you know what, if I don't cut and run now, we will both drown. That was how I felt. And so I got up one day and I walked away from my wife and I walked away from my children. My daughter, I remember where she laid on the bed. She was sleeping. And I looked at her and how innocent she was and how she had nothing to do with this. She didn't ask to be born. All she wanted was peace and loving parents at home. And I was leaving. But I think I felt somewhere that if I didn't leave, that we would all drown. So here I was at the pinnacle of my career, walked away from a great job at a great financial institution and moved into a shelter where, I mean, you had to sleep with your shoes on. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like, how did this happen? I'm from Cameroon. You know, we don't do anxiety, we don't do depression. It was the most terrible time in my life. And the crazy thing is, the very thing that had caused my marriage to disintegrate, which was anxiety, depression,
it gripped me. I began sensing the kind of darkness that my wife had experienced a good portion of her life.
When Sam left, it was the lowest point of my life. I spent most of my days in bed. I couldn't get out even to go to the store. But I remember having a friend, a great friend. He knew the Lord. And eventually, he did invite me to church. I went to church. I gave my life to the Lord. It took a while for me to grow in my faith, but I found that there were certain television programs that I held on to. I would stay up late in the night. I would look at Nightlight Live, and I look forward to seeing it. It was like a lifeline for me.
When I was in the darkest time, the darkest season of my life, it occurred to me that a book that I had meant to write a long time ago, now I had time. It was called Reconstructing God, Proposals Towards an Optimum Humanity. Because in my search for God, I hadn't found him. But you see, God allowed that book to go into the hands of some family and friends who prayed for me at the same time that my wife was praying for me. Eventually, my wife's prayers and their prayers combined, and on the streets of Houston was where I met Jesus Christ. I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it by myself. I didn't have the answers. And so I pulled over to the side of the road, and alone in my car, I gave my life to Christ that day. Naomi, in the meantime, continued to pray. She had become saved and believing that she and I would get back together.
Even though Sam had left and I felt abandoned, and I knew he was seeing other people, I never gave up hope of him returning.
Got into a relationship with this woman, and we were together for over a year, and then something happened. I sensed God saying to me, "Go back home to your wife." I said, "You know what? If this is what you want from me, then I'm gonna do it." Once I said that, it was like I had a heart surgery. A new love for my wife was just injected into my heart. And I became so hopeful. I saw a future that did not exist previously. I saw Naomi and I raising our children and doing things together and doing ministry together, building a home again. And I couldn't understand what had happened. So one of the first things I did was I picked up the phone and I called Naomi. I asked if she would forgive me, if she would accept me back. I don't think she even had time to think about it. It's like she was ready for this relationship to be restored, and she said yes.
When Sam came back, I found that he was a very different man. He was on fire for God. He came back letting me know that he really loved his children, and nothing will take him away from us again.
We could draw the sword and bend the bow.
And then one day, right in church, a sister came and said, Brother Sam, Paul Willoughby, who is a good friend of mine, he hosts this program, and he's looking for a guest.
Good morning. Welcome to Nightlight Live. I'm your host, Paul Willoughby.
And so we went that night, and then I get this email from Paul, and Paul says, Sam, I think you'll make a great host. Come and host the show.
Welcome to Nightlight Live. I am your host this morning, Sam Tita.
The very program that was Naomi's, literally her spiritual lifeline, and the desires of her heart that she would be connected to that ministry, both Nightlight and 100 Huntley Street. It just came to pass in a way that only God could orchestrate.
I was afraid of a lot of things.
Well, God has given us a lot of opportunities and opened up a lot of doors for us to encourage and minister to other people. Brother at church last week, 5 years after, last week he comes up to me, we're in a gathering, and he says to me, brother, I just gotta come talk to you guys. And my wife and I, our marriage had broken up. but I happened to be on 100.com and I watched and I listened to your testimony with your wife about what God did in your life. And I have to testify that my marriage is back together. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm a softie, and I of course I'm shedding tears, I'm crying, and this is happening right across the world. People are getting blessed by it. I've just found that to be completely amazing.
Crossroads, the ministry of Nightlight Live and 100 Huntley Street has been a blessing to me and my family. It brought me to a place right now where I see a future of limitless possibilities.